Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay.
And welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay. This is Jess. I am joined with host Mike and Matt tonight. How are you guys?
I'm struggling through the week, but I'm happy to be recording tonight.
I still sound pretty annoying too, so don't worry, Mike.
Thank you.
Oh, guys, this episode is going to be brought to you by GripMat. That is GRYPMAT.com, the world's first flexible non-slip tool mat. It was developed by an Air Force mechanic, and if you use our code PLP10, you get 10% off. So we're going to jump right into it, guys. There's been some more silly season, I guess, hot news. I mean, it's been kind of crazy the last week or so. First thing first, we're going to talk about Marcus Ericsson. He has been signed to drive with Ganassi, which I don't know about you guys, but I thought it was a little bit of a shock. So they are going to be having 3 full-time cars for 2020. And Marshall Pruitt of Racer Magazine is saying right now that it is possible for them to have a 4th entry if Oliver Askew wants to sign. I mean, what do you guys think about all this?
So a lot of stuff out of left field here. First, great for Marcus. We have kind of like Team Sweden plus Scott Dixon now. So definitely completely out of left field there. Probably a pretty good spot for him to be in out of the potential, places he could have gone in IndyCar in 2020. Askew in a 4th entry in Ganassi, and I know he's got the scholarship, but he's going to need to find some serious cash to make that happen in order to help Ganassi out there.
Yeah, I knew Ericsson brought a little money, but I'm trying to figure out who's paying for this, especially if they go after Askew, because, obviously Askew has up to about 3 races, but beyond that, I don't know if he's bringing money, or I don't know if Ganassi just is striking the mother load in the offseason right now with unknown sponsors. So good for Ericsson for sure. And if the Askew deal comes together, good for the team. I think it's definitely a step up from the yesteryear Ganassi lineup of Chilton and Kimball as their kind of 3rd and 4th drivers. So that's good for them.
So we kind of discussed it already, but our fan Andrew Barker at F1 Andrew asked, did we see this coming at all? Did you guys see Ericsson signing with Ganassi at all?
Thank you for the question, Andrew. No. And one thing to add, I think it mentions it in the story that they're supposed to announce a sponsor for Ericsson's car in the next week or so. I don't remember exactly what they said, but yeah, I did not see it coming at all.
I did not see it coming. And I think Jess correctly predicted a couple episodes ago that of some of the drivers kind of in the silly season hunt, that Ericsson would for sure be the one that gets a full-time deal. So props to you, Jess. Shout out to you. And I think that if I'm being honest with myself, I did not see it coming. So it was really surprising news, but it's kind of something we all love about silly season, is just getting those kind of random flash news that kind of take us all off guard.
Well, thanks for the pat on the back. I did see him signing full-time, but I'm not gonna lie, I didn't see it being with Ganassi, so I'm definitely shocked too. But I think it's really cool. I think he's got a heck of an opportunity. What do you guys think about the 4th car? What do you think the chances are, I guess, of there being a 4th car?
Well, I think Adam Stern even came out today and said that, even Aero McLaren, Schmidt Peterson, whatever they're called, the new McLaren Schmidt Peterson conglomerate, they're looking at adding Askew as well, and they're trying to see if they can sign him to a full season, which is another one of those crazy rumors. I personally, I don't know if it's in Askew's, but if nothing else comes together, I don't know if it's in Askew's best interest to go to Ganassi if it's for 4 races, but it's going to be a heck of a team for him. But if McLaren comes knocking, I think that's probably a better suit for him if he gets out there for the full season. So I'd put it at maybe a 33% chance at the moment that we see that fourth car.
Yeah, I don't think it's a very high chance. I know Michael said, I think he said it to us last year that, if they were to add a car, money wouldn't be an issue. It would be talent. So maybe that means as long as Askew brings maybe half a budget in the end, they'll make the other half work with sponsorship. But my outlook right now is I'm going to go with a 25% chance that there's a fourth car.
I can't place it very much higher than either of you did. I mean, honestly, this is obviously a silly season, but I can't honestly see where the benefit would be right off of the bat for them to come up with another car for a year. I'm going to say maybe 35%, but I don't see it being a whole lot higher than that. Like I said, I just can't really see a whole lot of benefit for them to do it, but I've seen crazier things, so I'm not going to totally rule it out. And then on this topic, we do have one more fan question, and it's coming from our fan, Jim. I'm sorry if I screwed this up. Kaiser, do you guys think that Ericsson will finish in the top 12 in points now that he's with Ganassi?
That's a good question on how to pronounce his name. Thank you for listening, though, Jim, and for submitting a question on Facebook. I think he's right around that bubble of the top 12 now, for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Good question. I think the chances are definitely higher than they were this year. If he can just figure out some of these ovals, he had some good runs at a couple this year, but for one reason or another, result was never there. Running top 10 at Indy before he crashed on his way into the pits. So if he can figure out the ovals, which definitely will help with a team like Ganassi, I definitely think a top, maybe 8 effort is within range for him next year for sure.
Okay, not to be the Debbie Downer here, guys. I believe that, yes, it is definitely possible. But my Debbie Downer part is if he's not in the top 12, he's in deep trouble. We all know Chips, I like winners. So he better be up there. He better show, his worth. And I definitely think he can. So I think he's got a good chance at I would even say in the top 10, but it would be, 9th, 10th, somewhere in there would be my best guess.
I mean, when was the last time he won a race in anything?
Oh, I have no idea. I'd have to Google it.
It has to be before F1, way back when, because I don't know if he did like any random endurance racing or anything like that.
The last time he won a race was 2013 in GP2.
Hashtag I like winners.
Yes.
Oh boy. Let's just skip that part.
Moving on, quick Patreon shout outs. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll through the list. Thank you, Mark Van Niekirk, Matt Gruenholz, and Michael Goodyear.
Yeah, thanks to all the Patreon subscribers. You guys are all awesome. I got stumped the host this week. Kind of cruise right along here.
Oh, no.
Speaking of Ganassi, got a little alternating competition for you guys. So I'm going to ask you a question with multiple right answers, and Jess will start us off here, and whoever has the most points wins. Speaking of Marcus Ericsson, he has become the 14th Ganassi driver to sign with the team since 2008. So including the drivers this year, how many can you name that have driven for Ganassi since 2008?
Can I pick him?
No, he's not eligible.
Oh, okay.
I was going to ask that too, Jess. Don't worry.
Can I pick any of their current drivers?
Yeah.
Just like the other drivers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody other than Ericsson.
Well, actually, I'm not even I'm gonna pick somebody randoms to get it out of the way. So Ryan Briscoe.
Yes.
Ed Jones.
Yes.
Scott Dixon.
Yes.
Dario.
Yes. With a question mark, he didn't. Okay.
I wasn't sure what year it was.
Most of those between now and then.
Dan Weldon.
Yes.
What year? What?
2008 to now.
Okay. Kimball.
Felix
Yes.
Rosenquist.
Yes.
Chilton.
Yes.
How many do we have left?
Yeah.
We have 5 left. You guys are tied 4-4.
Oh my goodness. Now it's going to get hard.
Oh boy. Karam.
Yes.
Uh,
All right. You
I'm
guys
having
can
a brain fart
I
here.
was gonna say you can rapid fire if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Missing a bigger one from
TK?
2011 and 2012. Oh yeah, Kanan.
Oh wow.
Okay. I get woo. What'd you say? 2011 and 12?
I missed one on my list. So there's actually 14 here. All right. So we got 4 left. Do you want me to just give them to you?
Yeah.
Wait, there was a tie. Think really hard because I don't want you guys to end
I
in a
just
tie.
broke the tie.
No, it was 5 to end it. Mike got one.
I got
Oh, crap.
last minute.
So now it's 5-5. So there's 4 left. There was one. He's the second generation driver who currently races, and he drove for Ganassi in 2011 and 2012.
Ray Hall.
There you go. All right, Mike's the winner.
Okay.
The 3 that you missed:
I got
Sebastian Saavedra,
Yeah.
Alex Tagliani,
Ooh.
and Giorgio Pontano.
Oh.
Yeah. That one I would have never got.
How did you guys forget about Giorgio Pontano?
Yep, I would have failed miserably at that one. Hey, I think we did fairly good, though.
Well, yeah, that was definitely.
Because it's been a minute since we've had a Stump the Host like that, so I think we did pretty good.
10 out of 14, not bad.
I'm gonna give us props.
Well, sorry, 11 out of 14.
Yeah. Okay, so guess what time it is, guys?
Oh.
Oh boy. I'm ready.
It is that time for the Joker lap.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. We'll just pretend that little bit of intro didn't happen. Let's just keep going with this one.
Okay. No worries. No worries. Technical difficulties do happen. So anyways, we will move on into the Joker lap. Guys, it is the off season and we are seeing weird things with silly season. That's just normal, right? So I'm giving you guys a team again, which is just at this point, I don't even know why I give you guys teams, but I'm giving you a team and I want you to come up with the most random silly season driver signing that you can to fill up your team this year. So I'm going to give you 2-car teams. So you got 2 people and it's got to be the most random, like people you can think of that are from all walks of racing, not just IndyCar. It could be from anything, but you want them to fill your team. And I'm guarantee I'm going to say who on some of these.
Jake Neely and Austin Dillon.
Okay.
Kyle Larson and I'm looking at a list here. Mike Groff.
Why? Mike Groff.
She said random, so
Matt,
going for
freaking
that.
wins this
Can I change my answers? I need to find some how about Jeff Wood and Spidey Webb?
Good choice. I still win because I got it. I got there first.
Spidey Webb, my favorite Indy 500 name ever, other than maybe like Rayson Gardner.
Yeah, nope. I still think he wins.
Mike Groff. It's been a minute since I've thought about Mike Groff.
All right. Well, I don't think either of you are probably going to win any races at all. Well, maybe Kyle Larson, though.
Hang on a second. He said Mike Groff. Put some respect on that name. That guy's going to be a champion. I'm telling you.
I'm looking at his record here.
That's finished 16th.
He had a couple top 10s in kart in the mid 90s.
His best championship finish must have been 16th. That's what this Wikipedia.
Surfers Paradise. He did not qualify for Indy in 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts, but that's okay. You know, fifth attempt is the charm, so he's got something.
Hey, we're talking about. I didn't know his Indy Lights champion, Mike Groff.
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry, I need to retract everything I'm saying.
You got to respect the Groff.
I mean, he did drive, 94? Was that the year that Rahal was? Yeah, that's the year they were garbage because they ran the Honda. That's tough that his best full-time opportunity was in the year that Rahal was not a very good team.
And I'm sorry, he did qualify in Indy for his fifth attempt, so fifth time was the charm.
Oh, boy.
He did finish 15th. I mean, that's kind of respectable for Mike Groff.
Wait, what year was that?
He qualified for the 500 in 1998.
I'm
not sure if you were born yet, but
I was. But he was also there in 94 with the Rahal.
94. Oh, I'm sorry. That didn't show up in the spreadsheet originally.
Oh, yeah. He was there, but
that one doesn't count.
Oh, okay. Heard that.
Well, good question, Jess. What would your answers be?
Man. Tony Stewart.
No, that's not random.
Neither is Kyle Larson, if we're going by that.
That's true.
Okay. Continue.
And, man. Alexis DeJoria.
Wow. Who?
She is, she was an NHRA driver and she retired and she's coming back full-time next season. So.
Oh, okay.
I did see
that. You guys have nothing to say about Jake Neely. I think he's going to be a winner for me.
He could be.
I will save my thoughts about Jake.
Actually, though, how tall is he? Because he might be too tall.
He's 6'5", I think. So was a couple other drivers out there. Graham Rahal's tall.
I know, but there's a cutoff, isn't there? I don't know what it is, but.
He's going to be a winner. I'm not worried. We'll build the car to fit his height.
We'll build the car around him.
In this spec series of ours, we're going to ask Delara to make some modifications so that we can accompany the height.
I like it. Okay.
Delara chassis.
Yeah. We can call it the Jake Neely chassis.
All right.
Oh, good grief. All right. Let's move on, guys.
All right. Anyways. The Marcus Ericsson news is pretty big, but also pretty big was something that we kind of commented on several weeks ago, which was the upcoming Aeroscreen test. Obviously, there was some tense moments surrounding the paddock after the releasing of some IndyCar officials after perceived kind of botching of this upcoming test. And so basically Jay Fry just stepped in and kind of saved the day per usual. So with the test, there was a couple tests that we actually have had since our last kind of news episode here. Scott Dixon and Will Power tested at Indianapolis, while Simon Pagenaud and Ryan Hunter-Reay tested at Barber. Just a quick rundown of some of the things they were saying. Will Power said, quote, "I am so happy that we have it. It is really a huge step in safety. It is the best of both worlds in that you have a halo and a screen." Scott Dixon said, quote, "Visually, there's been no issues. Some of the areas with tear-offs and where they seem in the middle will be sort of fixed down the road to make it better." Pagenaud said, quote, "The visibility is great. I think the car looks pretty futuristic, which I'm sure the kids will enjoy." And Hunter-Reay said, quote, "Obviously, this is how we work through things. Start off with a great product because they've done a great job designing it. And now we just put it to test and start tweaking it." Great thing about the Barber test that Pagenaud Hunter-Reay participated in is that there was actually rain. Jay Fry was hoping that we'd see some rain at one of these tests just to see how it'd work. And Pagenaud said that the visibility was actually better with the windscreen on the car than it would be with just how it is now with the driver's visor. There's a couple factors with the coating they put on the screen, and the shape of the windscreen itself allows the rain to kind of just fly off the screen a little better. I don't really know how to phrase that anyways, for you two, is this based on all the quotes, everything we've read, is this a good start to the Aeroscreen testing era of IndyCar?
In my humble opinion, absolutely. I think that, we're seeing it doing what it's intended to do, which is going to be protecting the drivers. Obviously, there's some tweaks needed here and there, and those things are going to come up, but I think it's a great start.
And in all honesty, I think it's an even better start than I was expecting. I thought one driver would go, I didn't really like this or that. But for the most part, the only complaint was, I think we need to change the tear-offs. So far, so good. And the fact that they got a rain test in to kind of, check that box without even having to, pump some water onto the track somewhere, is a great thing for IndyCar.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty nervous about the test. I think a couple episodes ago I said it was going to be one of the most critical parts of the offseason, just because if there was something wrong, it definitely could have ramifications down the road. But I mean, by all accounts, it sounds like everything was pretty good. And the only driver I'd actually like to see try it now is Sebastian Bourdais, just because he will give it to you straight. As far as if he doesn't like it, he'll say it. I do have faith, though, because, if NASCAR tests something, I feel like it goes kind of through the NASCAR PR ringer before it actually gets to the public. As far as if something critical is said, they kind of just hush that out a little bit. Whereas, Will Power, for example, is also a guy who kind of just calls it like he sees it, and he was very pleased. So the fact that we have 4 drivers already kind of saying a lot of positive things about it, I mean, I don't think there's too many negatives to draw on at the moment. So definitely really pleased to see that. We had also kind of discussed on the show here with, kind of the turnover in IndyCar based on some of the things leading up to this test. A little worried that it wasn't going to be on track for 2020, but now have you guys kind of thought about that stance and changed your mind? Do you think this is kind of getting that green light to being ready for next year?
100%.
I don't know if I'll go with 100%, but I definitely am way more positive about it than I was before the test. Before the test, I said, yeah, there's probably no way it's going to be on the car next year. So now I definitely would say, 75% to 80%, it's going to be on the car. Obviously, there's still a few tweaks. Like I said, there's always going to be tweaks, I'm sure. But I definitely think it's going in the right direction to be on the car for next season. And frankly, I hope it is at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the reason I'll say 90% is, to me, it was such a relief to see on the first day at Indianapolis, Scott Dixon and Will Bauer both kind of agreed that, all things considered, this, Aeroscreen could be on the car now on a race weekend. It would be just fine. And, there's a lot of speculation about aerodynamics and safety and things like that. And for them to kind of come out and say, like, yep, it's ready to go, we just need to tweak it a little bit. Like, that's awesome. Like, I don't think you can get much better than that. So huge props to everybody at IndyCar and Jay Fry and the aerodynamic department and everybody, really, because, Red Bull, I think everybody's done such a good job with it. Another thing that the drivers were saying was that, getting into the car is going to be a lot more difficult. They're going to need a little more time before the race to strap in and all that. But they said getting out of the car wasn't difficult at all. Is that kind of quote that was in a couple of the articles, does that ease your guys' fear as far as safety concerns when it comes to extrication, or if a driver needs to get out in a hurry? The fact that they're saying it's not that much more difficult, does that help you guys kind of get a little ease with that?
Oh man. A little bit, yes, for sure. But I think, hopefully we don't actually have to, encounter this scenario, but I'm not sure yet. right now I'm kind of on the fence of does it ease my mind or not, but maybe a little bit, but definitely needs to see, more testing and more drivers' opinions on everything first.
Does it ease my mind? Not particularly, because getting out when you are conscious and fully aware of your surroundings and you haven't just hit a wall at, let's say 180 miles an hour or whatnot, is completely different than attempting to get out of the car. If you have just been in an accident, if you are unconscious, if let's say, God forbid, you have a broken arm or something, that's going to be a much more difficult situation. And obviously there's no way to really test that until it unfortunately happens. So I'm still a little bit concerned about how they're going to get the drivers out safely in a situation where an incident might have just happened.
Yeah, I think the incident you're kind of describing to me would be kind of like an airborne accident. I think that's kind of where, knock on wood, we don't see that next year. But if that were to happen, that's kind of where we kind of sit up on our toes and see, like, how does this all work really? Because like Will Power said, he says now that he can't even imagine driving the car without it, because he just says he feels a lot safer. And Dixon, oddly enough, said that he can actually hear his radio for the first time of his career, which I'm not entirely buying, but it was still kind of a funny quote. But yeah, I think it's going to be something we're just going to have to learn about as, events happen. But still, at the end of the day, I think this is just a huge step forward. And I think, again, everybody at IndyCar has done such a really good job for looking out for the drivers, and looks way better than the Halo, if you ask me.
Yeah, very well said there. So we'll, before we get to the pitfalls, we'll wrap it up with 2 fan questions here. First comes from our buddy Michael Goodyear at mgoodyear007. Does IndyCar selecting well-funded teams like Ganassi and Penske for the testing that we just mentioned add to their advantage when the new Aeroscreen is implemented next year?
To me, it's a yes and no. I mean, more track time for them to kind of learn about it is obviously a good thing, but they're out there trying to help IndyCar and the sport itself to kind of learn about what's good about it and what's not good about it. And so I see, fans and some of the smaller teams, complaining that, why weren't we asked? It's kind of black and white that, if you could pick any team in the paddock, obviously Penske and Ganassi are going to be the first on the list just because of their resources, their pedigree, and all of that stuff. So I don't see kind of where the argument is. It's not like, Dixon's out there running with a little camber, and then the next lap he's going to run a little more camber, and the next lap, it's not like they're making a data set. I don't think. I think they're just trying to make sure that everything looks good with the screen as far as from the driver's point of view.
Yeah, I do not think there's an advantage. That's just because there are going to be changes to it. This isn't set in stone. There's going to be changes and obviously, even probably going to be tire changes, that come with this. So I just don't think that being this early in the testing, I don't think that this is going to be an advantage for really anybody involved.
Yeah, I understand why people bring it up, but I mean, if you look at it, Bourdais is testing, Hinchcliffe is testing. They're spreading it out more than maybe they did when the new Aero kit was released a couple of years ago. So I don't really think it's that big of a deal. It's part of the, I guess, perks for being one of the top teams. Yeah,
and one thing I'm trying to kind of, my memory's escaping me here, but when Servia and Montoya tested the new car, that was Penske, and who was the Honda team in that one? Was that Schmidt? Do we remember that?
I don't remember.
I don't either.
Can you Google that for me real quick? My phone's not really cooperating with me at the moment, per usual. Anyways, what's up?
Continue on.
Well, because I was trying to think, because I think it was Schmidt. And if it is Schmidt, so they tested that car, obviously. And then the first race in 2018 was St. Pete. And lo and behold, Robert Wickens went out there and kind of kicked the crap out of everybody, even though he didn't win the race, but he was the best driver out there. So maybe I'm not trying to counter argue my own point, but I either Wickens was just really good or maybe Schmidt did benefit from that a little bit. But again, I think it's kind of a stretch for some of the people kind of throwing conspiracy theories out there on the internet.
Yeah, I'm not finding anything. So if somebody wants to let us know in a tweet or Facebook comment, please.
I'm getting closer.
Educate us on that one. I'll continue on with the second fan question here. Great question from Jeffrey Lacey at JLacey16. If you could drive an Indy car from any era, what would it be and why?
I'll go first. I'm going to be a weirdo here just because this is when I really, really started to get into it. I had already been in it for a while, but the late 90s is when I was like really starting to become obsessed with IndyCar. So that's where a lot of my, I guess, nostalgia is at, even though I love the 60s, just there's a lot of eras I love, but my nostalgia is in the late 90s. So I would pick a late 90s IndyCar.
That's what I was going to say. Specifically, the 1999 Team Cool Green car driven by Dario Franchitti would be the specific one I picked, just because I loved that livery, and that Reynard Honda combo was so gorgeous. I'd
have to pick the Power Team number 14.
Oh, ew. Those engines sounded so bad, though.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, maybe they could throw like a kart engine in there and make it sound a little better. But yeah, I'd say the kart 1999 car. God, that car was just amazing. And the fact that Dario, said on Twitter that at places like Fontana and Michigan, that thing could reach 252 down the backstretch just blows my mind. That was so much fun.
Well, I guess I can't have the same answer as you guys, so I'm going to go with today's IndyCar. It's fast, it's safe, it looks great. Maybe I can amend my answer to when they come out with the new engine in 2 years. I think it's a great time to be driving an IndyCar, so I'm going to go with present day. I know that's probably the boring answer, but that's...
Do you have a runner-up?
Late 80s when I was born.
Perfect.
Purely for the fact of that's when I was born. So we will go to the pitfalls now. And again, pitfalls are sponsored by Craft 1861. You are all natural CBD products for health and wellness. You can go to craft1861.com and use promo code ELP40 for 40% off. And actually, if you stay tuned after we're done talking here, I chatted with Eric from Craft 1861, one of their executives, about CBD and IndyCar and a bunch of things. So, check it out. It'll be attached at the end of this episode here. And I'll play our little intro.
And now it's time for Pit Lane Parlay's Pitfalls of the Week.
I'll start it out this week. I'm going to pitfall Joey Logano. He had an unfortunate axle failure right at the start of the race this past weekend, wherever they were. And he was 24 laps down. And then he thought it would be a good idea to race the leaders. I don't know why 24 laps down. It's not like getting a lap back makes a whole lot of a difference there. So in that case, I don't think it was the right decision. So Joey Logano, you have been pitfalled.
Burn. I'll go next because Jess is going to be better than mine. Mine is going to be the acoustics expert who measured and weighed in on the potential F1 race that's coming to Miami. He said, quote, he found that the peak noise of an F1 race would approach the sound of a jet engine on takeoff, and said that he would be warning the residents in the area that they could suffer from permanent hearing damage. Oh my God. Lost for words here. Do we know is there like knowledge out there of the decibel levels of like an F1 car versus like a garbage disposal or an Indy car or an NFL stadium? Because I know like Arrowhead, where the Kansas City Chiefs plays, that gets up there in decibels, and I don't think people leave the game for permanent hearing damage. I think they're trying to find a lot of ways to kind of cancel the race, and I think that was kind of the not the best way to do it. You could say like, hey, we're closing off your streets and you won't be able to drive through the city in this part of the town for months on end, or hey, there's going to be plenty of random people kind of walking through your yard all day, every day for one weekend. But no, we're going to go with you're going to suffer permanent hearing damage route. And it's kind of one that makes me scratch my head a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there has been research done, and I know that hearing damage is possible, but it's on repeated exposure and whatever.
I mean, like 14 years ago, there was V12 engines going through Monaco. Do you think they were advocating for permanent hearing damage when that was going on?
Definitely not in Monaco.
Right. I don't get it.
Oh, people. That's all you can say. And on that note, we'll get to mine. And mine is just an people one. So the Aeroscreen tests came about, and everybody was interested to see exactly what it was going to look like. And how it was going to hold up in testing, obviously what was going to happen if it got wet. And we luckily got to see it. But as is usually the case, when something new comes about, the IndyCar fan world implodes on itself. And everybody on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever your social media drug of choice is, everyone was complaining about, oh my God, it's so ugly. It's so ugly. Okay, it's not the prettiest thing in the world. I get it. But then Marco Andretti, and I kind of cringe to have to back him up, but I do. Marco tweeted something along the lines of, it's not your head that's at risk, it's ours. So basically, keep quiet. And then everyone attacked Marco because, Lord forbid Marco have an opinion on something. And for once, I have to agree with him. It's not my head that's in the car. It's not, my life on the line. And I have to agree with him. If the drivers want it and they like it, then let's continue to use it. Yes, it's not the prettiest thing in the world. Obviously, it's a retrofit, so it's going to look a little awkward on the car. But people, it's for the safety of the driver. Do you care about the driver? Then you should care about the Aeroscreen. Like, that's the only thing I can say about this.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add other than I agree. It's some of the comments I read were pretty embarrassing.
They were just out of control this time.
Pretty brutal. Shout out to Marco. That was a good take, because it's kind of hard to argue that one.
Oh, but people tried. It was impressive how people tried.
Yeah, that was kind of bad. But did you guys also hear that the NASCAR is looking to introduce hybrid engines in 2022?
Yes.
Can you imagine the amount of pitfalls we're going to be able to get out of like fans complaining about that?
It's going to be wow.
It's going to be like pitfall heaven.
Even more so than Rich Energy.
Yep.
Oh, nah, I don't know about that.
Fair point.
On that note, I guess that wraps it up. Stay tuned for my chat with Eric from Craft 1861. And we will be back next week. So unless you guys have anything else, I think we can sign it off.
And guys, keep your lug nuts tight.
Welcome to a special edition of Pit Lane Parlay. We're going to call this the Listen to a Sponsor episode. We have Eric from Craft 1861 on board. Eric, thanks for joining me today. You are one of the main guys behind Craft 1861. So before we dive deep, let's learn a little bit about what Craft 1861 is and how you became involved with it.
Yeah, no, well, I appreciate you having me on the show. I'm a fan and love what you guys are doing and covering all things, on track and off the track with IndyCar. So thanks again for having me on. Yeah, I'm one of the co-founders and principals of Craft 1861. We're a health and wellness company based out of the Southwest here in New Mexico. And I think some IndyCar fans know us as the first company in the CBD space to ever sponsor an IndyCar driver and team, which took place towards the end of last year in testing at COTA with RC Enerson and the Carlin team. And then again, we picked things back up this year in the spring with the Carlin team again.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember walking through the garage area at the test, just kind of getting a layout and looking at the car and going, I've never seen that before. Let me figure out what that is. So, for those who don't know, there's a lot of myths and maybe facts that aren't particularly true about what CBD really is. So if you could just share with everybody listening out there kind of what it is and why it's important going forward.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'd love to give you a little bit more color. For start, it's important to understand the plant itself, and it comes from the hemp plant. And so as of last year, the United States government at a federal level has made hemp legal. And so essentially hemp it's an amazing plant. I mean, you can make all sorts of things with it, from biofuels to literally to clothing. The seeds, if you've ever been to like a smoothie shop or any kind of natural food store, you'll see that they even sell the hemp nut seeds because they're high in omega fatty acids. But what we do is we take the hemp plant and we basically extract the oil, and we take this oil, and this oil is important because it's very rich in something called CBD, cannabidiol, and there's essentially a handful of properties that are being researched and studied really around the world right now. But the early research has absolutely suggested that CBD is great for things like inflammation and in particular recovery from lots of different types of workouts, but also injury. And so there's some really promising research that we are actually propagating now with our relationship with the World Boxing Council, believe it or not, to start to study things like concussion and other soft tissue and joint type injuries. And so in that, what we had to do in terms of IndyCar was we had to be able to go and reach out to IndyCar and say, look, we love the IndyCar fans. We love the demographics of the fan base, the 57 million fans, and we want to help not only get involved into IndyCar from obviously a brand recognition and marketing standpoint, but we want to use this platform as a way to really educate people, including IndyCar, as to, well, here are the benefits, but here's the safe use of this CBD, and then more importantly, how can it become part of really the everyday life for health and wellness for the IndyCar fan and for the drivers and teams themselves.
Awesome. So we spoke a little bit about, you were on Enerson's car and involved with Carlin. From a racing standpoint, how did that relationship, come up, and will it be hopefully continuing in 2020?
Yeah, well, it came up in kind of an interesting, organic way, no pun intended. my partner in Craft 1861, his son started to race in Lucas Oil School of Racing last year, and so he was, coming up trying to get his IndyCar license. And R.C. Enerson's father, Neil Enerson, is the owner of the school. And those of you listening, you may know it as the former Skip Barber School of Racing, where I think a very large percentage of the current IndyCar drivers that came out of that school. And so as he was involved in that, we had an opportunity to meet RC and really start to learn about what his passion was and trying to get back and get a ride again and get back into the sport. And that was the time when we started to go deeper into, had IndyCar ever had a CBD sponsor? They hadn't. And we started the talks there about, well, could we, propose becoming a sponsor with IndyCar? And then we started the long process there directly with IndyCar to, again, educate them. A lot of it had to do with, for us, around the laws around marketing of CBD. So we had to actually provide a lot of legal research for IndyCar to allow them to accept us into the program. Moving forward for us right now, we're entertaining a lot of options within IndyCar for next year at the team level, but also at the actual event level, at the tracks themselves with the owners of the races. So that right now we're kind of looking at at the options there and trying to put together a plan that really will be the most impactful for not just for our brand, but also from an educational standpoint across the country as we and Canada as we move across the season.
Now, slightly off topic, were you a motorsports or IndyCar fan prior to prior to your son getting involved with the Skip Barber series?
Yeah. So for me, I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and so Al Unser was like a god, to us as kids here, like watching Al Unser do his thing, and Al Unser Jr., winning the 500. And in fact, it was pretty cool. We got to go visit the Al Unser Museum here in Albuquerque with RC, and we videoed it, and it was really cool. So for me, I was a big fan on that level. And then I got a chance to actually do some fabrication work on some Formula 4 stuff, when I was a young man. And I always loved racing. For me, I'm a car guy myself, and I like fast cars, and I'm really into, MotoGP and Formula 1 as well. And I think the thing that really stood out for me with IndyCar was really just the fact that, with the exception of obviously a couple motor choices, we're really, same chassis, no power steering, ABS. My background, I was actually a professional endurance athlete, so I raced triathlon around the world. And what really stood out to me was the physical demands of the IndyCar driver, right? And that was something that I think that the average person who's not really into motorsports racing or doesn't follow IndyCar didn't really understand. I mean, just the G-forces and just the physical effort required. So that's I think why I was such a big IndyCar fan. And also I looked at it as what a great opportunity to do a lot of R&D and testing on our product line and be able to get the Craft 1861 line smack in the middle of all that training and racing.
Yeah, and I know I am not a professional athlete, but the Craft 1861 product line for somebody who is in an airplane every week, traveling to these races, it definitely helps me sleep much better than I ever have in whatever hotel or airport bench I can find myself on for the for the evening traveling back from races. But good to know there. Let's see here. So there's a bunch of different CBD type products out there. Is there one for maybe somebody who's going, all right, this is kind of interesting, one that you might recommend for those who are interested in trying? And before I let you answer, just for those who are curious, if you go to craft1861.com and use promo code PLP40, you actually get 40% off, which is an awesome deal. So thank you to you guys for that. And now I'll turn it over to you for the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's important to understand that this is a new industry, and not all products are created equal. And the great thing is that the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, because CBD is classified as a drug, they have come in and now have started to set up regulations. But the regulations are a little bit behind what the products are that are on the shelf. So there's some really important things for the listeners here to understand about, first of all, choosing the right CBD product for them, and then how to go about starting to use CBD to get the kind of biggest bang for your buck, if you will. So to start off, you have to have a product that is tested. Okay. And so typically, what we see is a lot of products that are just, they're made abroad in China. They're the ingredients, because CBD is typically only just one ingredient, right? There's many other ingredients that you put in there, whether it's a topical or a tincture or a strip, which we can kind of talk about some of our products. But ultimately, it's important that product's tested. So what we see is some products are just flat out not tested. Therefore, you have no idea what's in it. You don't know what the potency is. You don't even know if it has any of the active ingredient. That's typically what we see sold in like gas stations, right? And sold on some, kind of spammy type, websites. I would steer clear of that, right? And then second thing is, so testing. So a lot of people will test the oil, and that's great. That just shows that there's no pesticides or any kind of added things that have got introduced into that oil. But what we do is we do something called finished goods testing. So we actually go all the way through and we test the oil at the farm level. So all of our hemp comes from Colorado. It's organically grown in Colorado. But what we do is once we actually make our products, so whether it's a topical or whether it's a tincture or whether it's our CBD strips that go in your, into your cheek and they dissolve in your mouth, we actually do what's called a finished goods test. So that's basically us knowing 100% that, first of all, none of our products have any THC in them, which is very important to understand. There are a lot of CBD products that claim to have no THC, or they say they have small amounts. But if you're drug tested, that's a big one, right? If you're drug tested for your job, or if you're a driver, that was one of the big things for IndyCar was for us being approved was that we didn't have any THC in our product. So starts with testing. So make sure that whatever product you buy, it's got to have testing done on it. Again, Craft 1861 products we lead the industry because we do testing on the oil and finished goods testing. So that's the first critical piece. The next thing that's important to understand is your body has something called an endocannabinoid system. Okay. It's kind of a big word, and I would definitely recommend people researching, the endocannabinoid system, but ultimately it exists in us naturally. It's also in our pets. So if you have a dog, your dog has an endocannabinoid system as well. And so what we're really trying to do is activate that endocannabinoid system. And that endocannabinoid system is what really helps our body to recover. All right. That's where it helps with inflammation, helps with pain management. There's new studies coming out every single day around the world that's really talking about, what is the benefit of this endocannabinoid system and how does it work? Okay. And so from the basic level, what I recommend for everybody is to have a twice a day small dose. So we like to start out somewhere in the 10 to 20 milligrams range of active CBD. And you want to get that typically in a tincture or in a strip. I would stay away from pills. The reason for pills, staying away from those is you have to digest them, and the bioavailability, or how much you can actually uptake of the active ingredient, is very low. So what we want to do is, like with a tincture, it's just, a couple of drops that you put underneath your tongue. Why you want to do that in the morning and then at night, that's what I recommend, is it basically goes into, it's a sublingual bioavailability. So the sublingual tincture is going in right into your bloodstream through your mouth. Okay, so that would be something that I would recommend doing. And think about it like if you've ever taken Zyrtec or allergy medication, more is not better. Okay. So if every day you take a 10 milligram Zyrtec, for example, and you have great relief from your allergies and it's in your system, just keep that going. It wouldn't benefit you anymore to have like 200 milligrams, for example, of Zyrtec, right? And that's the thing that we see with false marketing that's out there is you're like, hey, well, we have, 7,000 milligrams in our tincture, right? There's no research right now that says taking large amounts of CBD is any better than taking small microdose amounts. Okay. So that's the critical thing is get a good quality tincture that's tested. And the flavors do vary. So I would say our flavor, you've had ours. It's really mellow. It's really nice. It's easy to, it's very palatable, right? It's easy to taste. But what I would say the very next thing then is to really look at getting a high quality topical, and topical meaning it's typically a lotion or a cream. Okay. And on those, again, not all products are created equal. For starters, you have to look at what all of the ingredients are in the product. For us, for example, like in just our lotion, we have over 15 very powerful, research proven ingredients that go into each of our lotions. And so those are things like, you probably have heard of arnica for bruising. So right. Arnica, we use things like jojoba, borage, calendula. So there's a lot of other things that we put in there that are synergistic that work essentially with the CBD. But the critical thing about topicals is that they have got to be what's called pharmaceutically compounded. Okay. So pharmaceutically compounded, for those of the listeners who have ever used a hormone cream of some kind, where you put it on your arms or your belly and you rub it in, that actually penetrates the skin into your body. Okay. So in our case, what we do is everything's pharmaceutically manufactured, made in the United States, but we actually design our products so that they'll go into the muscle and into the joint. Okay. So that's critical. Otherwise, what you have a really nice skin cream. And skin creams are fine, but for those of you who are active and working out or are sore or have injuries or have had a surgery, right, or have a really bad headache from, falling asleep on a plane and cranking your neck, you want immediate relief, right? You want something that you can rub on and get relief. And that's where, again, I would say for all the listeners, when you're looking for topicals, again, it starts with testing. Then it's what are the active ingredients in there? If you see canola oil and really junky, we've seen rice bran oil in products, really nasty stuff that you would never want to put on your skin in the first place. Odds are you want to just steer clear. Okay. You're not going to get the relief and that you're really looking for. And so that's really it. I would say using CBD in the morning and at night through the bloodstream in terms of a tincture or a strip. We have these phenomenal strips. I know you've tried them. They're basically looks like a little Listerine strip, right? And it's so easy and convenient. You can just pop it right in between your cheek and your gum. We have special ones that are for sleep. We have some that are for relaxation. We have some that are more uplifting to keep you going throughout the day. But that's really going to be your best bet is you want to keep, microdosing or drip feeding your system again through the bloodstream, through a tincture or a high quality strip. And then you want to be using the topicals throughout the day as needed. And from a athlete standpoint, it's every workout, every single workout you should finish, jump out of the shower and definitely rub a CBD lotion or in our case, our extra straight topical cream, just rub it right into the muscles that you just worked out and you'll notice a pretty substantial benefit.
Yeah, it's definitely made a big difference since I've finally gotten back in the gym in the last couple of months in terms of waking up and not feeling twice my age. So we'll wrap it up with one more question here. And this is more of a curiosity and it might be a long answer, but one thing that you mentioned, and I know other motorsports writers have kind of touched on the topic throughout the year, but CBD and getting approved by IndyCar is a kind of a unique process because it's such a new area. What is that approval process like? And every time you maybe let's say next year you sponsor another car in addition to RC Enerson, do you have to go through that same approval process every time? Does it make it easier for A, you, or B, maybe a second CBD company, or they all need to be singularly approved?
Yeah. So the most important thing to understand is all sponsors, regardless of the category, do have to be approved by IndyCar, right? So whether we were a shipping company, like a DHL, right, which we see in IndyCar, or whether it's a Craft 1861, CBD health and wellness line of products. The important thing is that right from the beginning, what we had to do was we had to be able to show IndyCar, first of all, that all of the marketing, okay, so the activation that we would do, so from our logo all the way through to what we would do activation-wise at any of the events, and then ultimately, by having a CBD company logo on the car itself, going around the track on television, we had to be able to show that was legal at the city, regional, state, national level. And we had to be able to show that for every single one of the races on the calendar to include Toronto. So that was the hardest part was because IndyCar themselves, they needed to lean on our lawyers to be able to go through that process and be able to show them that we were totally compliant all the way through. One of the big things, for us was, again, being able to show that we had a very high quality product, right, that was tested, that didn't have any THC in it. If we even had one single product that had THC in it, it would impact everything because it ultimately it's similar to in tobacco. There are companies that have nicotine-free products, but it's from a tobacco company. They still have to put the tobacco warning on it, if that makes sense. So ultimately, it came down to really broadcast rights. NBC obviously being the main broadcast network. We had to be able to show that everything that we were doing from a marketing standpoint and an activation standpoint was legal and legit all the way through. We did see a couple of other CBD companies on our coattails come through and go through the process and we're able to be in the sport. But some of the things that we're seeing, like on the NASCAR side right now, is NASCAR still trying to figure out what their stance is going to be on CBD. And what they're saying is that the drivers themselves have to be able to use whatever products that they're endorsing or whatever they're sponsoring. So get that, right? So in our case with IndyCar, we have no issues because we are already World Anti-Doping Agency approved. So, and that's what we had to do with the World Boxing Council partnership that we've done as well for 166 countries around the world. So what for us, it was really about, again, education, right? This is what testing is, right? These are what quality products are. This is what the the exact IndyCar fan base is, and it is perfectly in line with what we call the new CBD consumer is, which are people who are very, very much looking for alternatives to pharmaceutical medication, right? And traditional over-the-counter medication. They want to use natural products to help balance their lives, whether it's from a pain management on the muscle side, or also, like you touched on, sleep, right? And anxiety. I mean, we're all under stress, right? We're all working too much. We don't rest enough, right? So being able to use, plant-based ingredients to be able to, activate that in our body to help us to recover and relax is a big thing. So I think, from my standpoint, what I hope continues to happen with IndyCar is that they continue to look at this entire category as CBD, and I hope they're continue to be very, very critical as to who they allow into the sport. What we don't want to see happen, is again, these white label type CBD companies who aren't really, manufacturing a product that is tested and is safe, right? And from a marketing standpoint, nobody wants to see big pot leaves on the side of cars, right? I mean, I think that the class and the level that IndyCar is at, I think it behooves them to keep that level high, correct? And really for us, one of the things that a lot of people don't know about is our plans with all motorsports is we have big initiatives that we do with veterans, and so for us, it's at every event that we're at in motorsports. I mean, in the community, our plan is to go in there and actually help. Educate veterans and help veterans with PTSD. We donate a lot of product to veterans each year. We offer substantial discounts to veterans. So I think that that's really what this needs to be about in this category, right? I think it needs to be, this is really it truly is a medical drug, right? No different than we see Novodisc and we see, right, these other pharma companies that are in IndyCar. I think what it comes down to is really building a good relationship so that the drivers themselves are in a position to be able to use these products themselves. And then from that standpoint, then, the fans being able to jump on board. But overall, to kind of finish up on it, the fan support was overwhelming. I mean, even running the first CODA test that we did, where there was just, some bloggers and some kind of behind the scenes footage that was getting out there, and it was kind of leaked that, hey, what's this craft company? It was unbelievable. I mean, the emails we got, the support we got, people telling stories about, personal stories of family members who have battled cancer or disease or illness or things like MS and have had tremendous benefit and relief from using CBD in their lives. They were so supportive. They were so unbelievably supportive. And we had virtually zero blowback or any negative anything at all. So to me, that just shows that this is a category that's here to stay in IndyCar. And I hope that IndyCar continues to be open-minded with what's possible for the drivers so that there's alternatives to, after hard, bad crashes. I think that there's, I want to see drivers getting away from opiates. I want to see them getting more on to natural recovery methods. And for us, with our work with the WBC, we're absolutely dedicated from a research standpoint to try to develop a concussion protocol using CBD so that when there are, crashes, within 5 minutes of that crash, we could administer an effective dose of CBD to actually help with traumatic brain injury.
I love everything I hear. That's just amazing. I actually am slightly speechless, but great work. And I know it's going to, come even, longer in the distance there. I think CBD is a great product for those who might have some sort of pain, and I wish I had it when I was playing hockey and a handful of concussions I had back in the day.
Oh yeah.
But again, craft1861.com is where you can find all the information. They were on RC Enerson's car this year. They helped out and sponsored Carlin at the Indy 500. So be sure to check them out. Use promo code PLP40 on the website for 40% off your order. Again, this has been Eric from Craft 1861, and thank you very much for some time this morning, man. And we look forward to seeing you on the grid in 2020.
Yeah, really looking forward to it, and I would love to come back anytime. So if any of you listeners have any questions specific around CBD, I'm more than happy to jump back on and do some Q&A with you.
I think that sounds like a great idea. Thank you very much, sir.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.